Hi and welcome back to my channel. We're here today to be discussing the endometriosis diet. There's a few people that may say it works and there's a few that don't. If you want to find out my opinion on it and how I've been feeding myself or nurturing myself while having this condition, keep watching. Well, first and foremost, not that anyone has asked or not that anyone may care, but if you're wondering what this red mark is, why I'm speaking, I have a cold sore coming through. My health right now is not great. I am under my GP to see what's going on. Not that I need a sob story. I hear, well, I've heard a lot about this particular diet, and there's different opinions all over the internet. One may say you shouldn't eat meat, the other says that you can, other places say you shouldn't eat soya, other places say that you can. And I'm here to kind of say, this is what I've been doing, and this is where I feel it works for me, and whether or not it works for you is entirely up to you. And we may even come to a crossroad and say, Louise, I've tried this and that doesn't work, but it works for you. But this is why it's so interesting to see what's actually going on out there. What is textbook doesn't necessarily mean it's reality. So let's get started on what you actually came here for. Step number one. So step number one for me is way back when I was diagnosed with endometriosis, when I was around 21 years old. I was a meat eater, I had dairy, I was drinking alcohol, not often, but I wasn't a heavy drinker, maybe occasionally once or twice a year. I had carbs, which wasn't necessarily gluten-free. I would have complex carbs, which was either pasta, rice, and bread, which was a white variety. And I felt awful, but I didn't necessarily assume it was to do with that. Now, backtrack to when I first realized that I may have an issue with my periods. I also had issues with digestion, and that's what I thought, okay, maybe it's connecting the dots. And I realized actually IBS, or irritable bowel syndrome, is very much connected to endometriosis, and that is down to the digestive tract. Now, when I first started having these issues, I decided to go gluten-free. Off of the bat, no idea where that idea came from, but I thought, you know what, let's cut it back. I tried gluten-free oats, pasta, bread. No, weren't too keen on bread. It was a bit too crumbly for me, in my opinion. But then as I started looking more into it, I realized I can have sourdough bread as well, and rye, anything that would cause, not cause inflammation to my gut. The next step that I did was invite more veggies onto my plate. So predominantly the plate or the portion size should be half veggies, quarter fats and quarter proteins. So that's where I was stuck. So after I decided to do the veggies, I noticed I was still feeling bloated because I was having broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and all of those foods are a natural vegetable which can cause gas, right? As soon as you have a Brussels sprout on Christmas, what happens? You're either belching or doing whatever you need to do downstairs. And it became more and more of a cycle for me where I was finding myself to be more uncomfortable. So what I'm getting at is knowing what works for you and what doesn't. But the only way you're going to know is how your cycle is by the end of the month. So by the time that you finished your period and then you have your first luteal phase, or your first phase while you're going through your cycle, you would then notice certain patterns. It took me about 10 years for me to even figure this out, mostly due to the fact that I was training based on the phases, and I'll do a video on that as well with the 4 phases of the period. And then I noticed one of the biggest things for me was cutting out any estrogen based foods. Now I'll put a list down for you on this video, and I'll also do a link down below of all the estrogen foods which I found was quite problematic for me. And majority of the time the veggies that I was also eating was also helping them because they were combining the estrogen and flushing them out of my system, so I wasn't getting the effects from it, which was quite clever. And then also with regards to my meat intake, by probably 10 or 15 years into having endometriosis, I completely cut out meat altogether. Now, if I could be a fully fledged vegan, I would be. If I could be a fully fledged meat eater, I would be, but it doesn't always work that way, and it doesn't always work well in terms of who you are as an individual and the way that you eat as a person with you and your family. It has to be right for you. So with me, I eat salmon and tuna, any omega-3 sort of foods, with omega-6 as well. Sometimes if I haven't had salmon or tuna that week, I have a supplement. So I didn't want to rely on supplements, but those things are available to you. So that was what I did. I decided to be gluten-free, cut out some meat, see how I felt. Eggs especially was a problem for me. Red meat, definite no-no. Chicken, occasionally, but once I completely cut out all meat, you know, that was gone. Turkey was okay, as long as it was lean. And majority of the foods that I ate before, it may have been where other foods which I was also eating was counterproductive for my digestive system, for it to actually be beneficial for me. So just to kind of give you that sort of feel on it, I will put some pictures as well of the foods I've made that's been very helpful towards me, and which since Christmas I will start to introduce again, to try and get that balance back. As I said, I haven't been very well, and I don't actually know what that is, what's happening to me in that regard, but that's that. And then the final thing which I'll mention is sugars. Sugars can be nemesis because sugars is in pretty much all carbohydrates. You can have complex sugars as well, where you just have the white processed sugars, which sounds very easy to do, which you just don't have it at all. But your body needs sugars for fuel. So where you find your sugars from is also quite important. So you can get them from bananas, most fruits, any fruits which are pill based. So if you have like a banana or an orange, and well, strawberries occasionally, that's probably the sweetest of the berry. There's many other fruits out there which you can use as a substitute for sugars. Honey, if you're not vegan. Lots of different alternatives if you are into sweeteners, not necessarily promoting a sweetener, but this is your life. This is what you decide to do for yourself. Anyone could promote that you shouldn't have this, you shouldn't have this, you shouldn't have this. But anything in balance is always recommended, because if you were to cut out something completely and eliminate it from your diet completely, it may actually be more counterproductive than it needs to be. I have a friend. Say hello. This is my... Okay. So yeah, I think overall, do what you need to do for you. Make sure that you make a food diary of what you can and cannot eat. Decide on whether or not it's beneficial overall, regardless of whether or not you go out for food. If you don't go out for food and you find it's easy for you just to be at home, be completely regimented and strict with your diet, that's it, do you. The last thing I would say is alcohol. Alcohol can be quite tricky, because if I was to have one alcoholic beverage, that may not necessarily affect my cycle. If I have loads of alcoholic beverages, like birthdays, anniversaries, any sort of occasion where I'm going to be having more than one, then I start to notice the difference. So that again is where I say, if you feel that you are not feeling good, note it down. Be more aware of your body. If you need to track it on an app, I track my cycle. Every time I have a flare up, I take a note of what I've eaten overall for the month. You can kind of figure out what you've had and what you haven't. If you go on a holiday and binge for 2 weeks and you have a bad cycle, you kind of say, oh, it's that. Because at the end of the day, a flare up is a flare up of the whole system. So if you're finding that you're flared up because of lack of exercise, not sleeping right, your moods are everywhere, you're not drinking enough water, you're not looking after yourself, but then you've eaten right, it kind of becomes a little counterproductive. So the best thing I can suggest is eat based on what you feel like. You are what you eat, and I 100% believe in that. I'm not going to dictate what you shouldn't eat and what you should eat. The endometriosis diet is tailored to the person with the endometriosis. Because at the end of the day, if you were to be someone that is allergic to foods and then you're also having endometriosis, where would that end up for you? So I don't know how helpful this video has been, but this is my honest opinion on it. So I can only go by that and what I do in my life as well. So I hope that you find some clarity, and I hope that these videos are as helpful. Please comment down below any suggestions of any topics you want me to cover on this particular situation, and I'll be more than happy to. See you again soon, and take care. Bye.